What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Browns Beat podcast. It is it's a crazy day. It's a weird day. We don't get a whole lot of these as Browns fans, but it's a day uh, where the Browns fought, came back from a crazy deficit, and not just won, but took it, as you said, Tristan, before we started here. So, with that being said, Tristan, how are you doing? I imagine pretty well.
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, man. I don't know if you can hear it through my mic, but my voice, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Oh my goodness. It was such a great, hard fought, resilient victory. Um, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. But yeah, in other words, I'm doing great. How about
Yeah,
yourself, Derek?
exactly. Yeah, I'm doing well. Overall, it was a good day. The most unfortunate thing was, you guys know if you listen to this podcast, a lot of times I have to watch these games from work, so I'm like multitasking and still paying attention. This is one of those games that I wish I could just sit in front of my TV and just watch this greatness that happened. Uh, so if you're living under a rock, the Browns won. Um, this is there's so much to talk about with this game, and there's so many different things we can get in depth with here. But Tristan, I guess right off the bat, just as a whole, before we break down every part of this team and how things went, um, what's your biggest takeaway, and what's your biggest kind of just message that this team sent today? Because boy, did they send a message today. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. For me, the message was this: no matter how bad they're playing, no matter what type of adversity they're going up against, no matter the opposition, no matter anything, this Cleveland Browns football team, this 2023 version of the Cleveland Browns, they're going to fight tooth and nail to the very end, and they're going to make you work. You are going to have to two of the three. You're going to have to either be better than them, work harder than them, or be tougher than them.
Mm.
And you got to have at least two of those three, or else you are not going to come out with a victory against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, just the resilience today. You know, we, you know, Browns fans everywhere, us, have been critical of Kevin Stefanski, have been critical of Deshaun Watson, have been critical of a lot of aspects of this football team. Hell, even Jerome Ford.
Mhm.
And what we saw today was that these guys went out there and they just did not say die. They had every reason from the very beginning of that game up until the fourth quarter comeback where they could have just said, you know what, today's not our day. I'll just collect my paycheck and we'll focus on Pittsburgh. You know, that would have been the easy thing to do. And this team said, no, we're going to keep fighting. And you know what? They're beating up on us right now. Let's be tougher. Let's play better. You know, let's get ourselves into a position where we are going to, based off of our work ethic, our talent, and just our sheer toughness and our will, we are going to win this football game. And you are going to have to do something to stop it. And that's what this game was for me. It was such this game just symbolized the cultural change that this Cleveland Browns team has been going through. This this right here is the Cleveland Browns team that we have been begging for. A team that's going to fight like hell and is going to represent these fans in the way that we deserve to be represented. Great victory. Great victory, Derek.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the same thing I would say along those lines. I think this was the first time watching a game where, aside from really like the 49ers game where that was just kind of a grit through it type situation, this game was the first time that I think the Browns got slapped in the mouth hard and early. And it took a minute, but piece by piece, they started almost building that, not even just courage, but just started answering the Ravens in every sense and physicality. And there's plenty of things to discuss and plenty of, like I said, different ways we can talk about this game. But just as a whole, when we talked about it before, the one thing that I said was this is a really good measuring stick. It's going to be a really good measuring stick for your offense. It's going to be a good measuring stick for your defense and just the team as a whole. We're at the point in the season where you're about midway through, just I think a little bit over midway through now. And who are you? What are you going to be? And this was the game to find that out. And I think, like you said, we found that out. The Browns reached that point where it was like, it doesn't really matter that you jumped up on us early. We don't care. We're gonna fight back. We're gonna answer. And that was in every sense. I mean, you can talk about that with the offense, you could talk about with the defense, and even special teams, right? D Hop misses a kick to tie the game, gives you a heart attack, and then he answers that with winning the game winner or kicking the game winner. So, literally every sense, every aspect of this team, very proud, like you mentioned, stepped up. And to me, I think this was a very good reflection of not just Deshaun Watson as a leader of the offense, but Kevin Stefanski as a coach. Because Tristan, I saw Kevin Stefanski getting pissed today. I saw him getting his guys hyped up today. And that's something we just don't see. And that's something we have to see. You have to have that as a head coach. And we saw that today. We saw that today, and you see what it does to this team and what it does to this culture and just this group of guys and this group of coaching staff that we have currently. Yeah, I'm very proud, and I think before we actually get into the game itself, I'll say this: I think this is the perfect wave of momentum heading into the rest of the year because I think that's what this is. You had the 49ers game where it was like you weren't supposed to win that game. You got it and you felt great, right? That was a little push. I think this is almost that second push through the rest of the season where teams that are going to be tough, you now have the confidence that you can match them. And I think that's absolutely huge. So, with that being said, let's talk about this game. Tristan, where do you want to start? Offense, defense? What do you want to do?
Um, let's kind of you know what? Yeah, let's get into the offense, man.
Okay.
Because for me, it's the one that I'm most eager to tackle because it was just fascinating this game on offense. I mean, I kind of mentioned it at the very beginning. Like Jerome Ford, I thought he was fantastic today. Did a really, really good job of kind of doing all the things that Pierre Strong we really liked. He was very decisive in hitting his hole, running and being powerful, and he was very, very good today. I think it was 17 carries for 107 yards, like 6.3 a carry, and that's really, really good, and it's very promising because when we sat here on the last podcast and we talked about how Jerome Ford didn't look so great against Arizona, and there was a little bit confusion as to why he was getting as many touches as he did. You see it now.
Mhm.
You see why he got those touches because he's showing this in practice, and he has this talent, and you know it was something where he just needed to get going, and now it felt like this game he got going.
Mhm.
um I think that the offensive line for the most part held up really well today, especially when you consider the two starting tackles that we have out. That was a huge performance from them. While they weren't spectacular, they weren't a liability,
Mhm.
and that was the big thing. If we were going to win this game, they couldn't be a liability, and they weren't. So, hats off to them. David Njoku is an animal. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy, I mean, he had a pretty bad drop early on. But you know what? We talk about resilience, and he showed it today because he had a bad start to the game, could have fumbled and folded when we were down, and instead he's running with 3 tacklers hanging off of his back, trying to fight this team and will this team into victory. Um, let's see who else. The receiving group, of course, Amari Cooper had a great game. Finally, Elijah Moore gets his touchdown.
Yeah, finally.
Um, yeah, it looked like today he was doing good. Again, like it's hard to say exactly what Elijah Moore is doing really well because it's like he doesn't get the ball a ton, but it seems like now he's in a spot where when he does get the ball, he's creating some positive effects now. Before it was like those end rounds were killing him. And now it seems like he's kind of found his role. And as Deshaun kind of grows into his role, I think that we'll start to see a bit more of him and a bit more promise of him. Um, Cedric Tillman absolutely laid the hell out of Kyle Van Noy.
Mhm,
That was awesome. He got a few targets today, which was good to see, but of course didn't really come down with any.
mhm,
But it's nice to see that Deshaun was looking in his
mhm.
direction. That was nice to see. Um, and speaking of Deshaun, I mean, there's nobody really else I can think of at the moment. Oh, before I get into him, Wyatt Teller. I thought
Mhm.
he had a fantastic game. I know I kind of talked about the offensive line as a whole. I want to highlight him. Um, really great today. A lot of pancakes, and jumped on the fumble that could have ended our game on
Yeah,
that last drive.
he won the game, I
Clutch
think,
play.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, that play saved us the game,
Mhm.
absolutely. And um, yeah, his overall performance today I thought was really, really good. Especially a guy that you know us on this show, Cleveland Browns fans as a whole, have been very critical. A lot of signs point to him getting cut this off season, and it was nice to see him have this performance because he is a talented guard, and we needed him today, and he showed up. So I wanted to highlight him. But Deshaun Watson, man, I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, this guy. You know what? Before I go into my stuff, Derek,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the rest of the offense outside of Deshaun? Because I think we're going to have a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
things back and forth on Deshaun here.
yeah. Um, so a couple things I wanna touch on. I agree, obviously, completely. However, I will say this, I think the offensive line, you mentioned the performances you got from Wyatt Teller and the 2 guys that stepped in at offensive tackle, you know, I think here's the thing that I loved the most about today, and especially about the game plan today. You saw your superstars on that offensive line step up, whether if it be, uh, Wyatt Teller, and especially, I mean, you could say whatever you want about Batonio and all those guys, right? We got a core group of guys in the center of that offensive line that can go toe to toe with anybody. But man, you mentioned it. Wyatt Teller all day long, I feel left and right was making plays. He looked unstoppable. Um, and especially in the run game and kind of creating ways to make plays, opening up lanes and such. I thought Wyatt Teller had a fantastic game today for sure. And like you said, I think he won the game for us jumping on that fumble because that's a disaster. The Ravens somehow end up with that. I think we're having a much different discussion here. Um, but yeah, the way Wyatt Teller stepped up today, unreal. Um, Amari Cooper was an interesting one. I was kind of expecting him to have a little bit of a down game because, historically, Amari Cooper doesn't really have two back to back really, really good games. That's just something, even going back to the time in Dallas, that he struggled with. And given the fact that it was Marlon Humphrey and everybody that Ravens secondary has, I was kind of expecting a little bit of a down game. No, Mari Cooper got his today. He showed apart. He was still that number one receiver. Elijah Moore, you mentioned it. I think with Elijah Moore today, I think we used him as a receiver, which is how he should be used. Whereas we've been using him as kind of like a glorified gadget guy, essentially. And him being used as a wide receiver, and especially on that play where Deshaun threw him that touchdown, do that. Do that more. Because if you use him in that way more, pun intended, you have a different aspect to this offense. You kind of have that threat not out of the backfield. You have that extra threat at the wide receiver position that we've desperately been needing, and I feel like we got that today out of Elijah Moore. So game plan wise for the future, I think, go with that. Njoku, you mentioned it. He had himself a really good day. Um, so I think out of this game offensively, outside of Deshaun Watson, I think what you've seen today is really the special guys have started to separate themselves, right? Njoku continuing to do it, Mari Cooper continuing to do it. I think Elijah Moore has entered his name into that conversation if we use him correctly. I think he absolutely can. And then you mentioned it, Jerome Ford and that whole running back room as a whole. I think Kareem Hunt today was special at times. He got his touchdown. Um, but Jerome Ford was very interesting because it wasn't as if he was, you know, just juking people out and, finding the open hole. He was just seeing it, hitting it. And when he did, he was taking it for 10, 15 yards. Some of the things we see from Nick Chubb, where it's like, if you give him that opportunity, he's not going down. We saw that today out of Jerome Ford, which is something that we haven't really seen. He's been a guy that's gone down instantly as soon as you contact him. And he's struggled. He struggled a lot this season finding that open lane. Today he hit it. And the offense as a whole, once it got clicking, because did not certainly early on, but once it got clicking, we moved the ball right down the field. And ultimately, Tristan, enough so that, towards the end of that game, you go down to kick that game winning field goal. I was not concerned with getting there. I was not. We were moving the ball. We were finding ways to get the job done. And if we can keep that going, and this is a good Ravens defense, I don't think you guys understand. This defense and the Browns defense, two of the best in the NFL. And the fact that our offense was able to move the ball like we did, execute like we did against a defense as good as the Ravens, that's a very, very good sign as far as the rest of the year. So, but with that being said, obviously a big part of this conversation with the offense is the leader of the offense, your quarterback, Deshaun Watson. This was a lot to say, Tristan. Go ahead. I'll let you start.
Yeah, just I mean, let's start at the very beginning, man, because the start of this game was not great. Of course, on his first drop back, similar to the Steelers game, tip pass, interception, pick six, like about as bad of a start as you can get, right? But again, people on Twitter were blaming him for not seeing the blitz, but it wasn't that. It was that you have a 6'4" safety who's incredibly athletic that just made an amazing play. Like, I don't think it's much more than that. If you want to disagree with me, you can, and I mean, I'll hear it. But for me, listen, sometimes the safety makes just a great play,
Mhm.
and you've seen that with Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, and Kyle Hamilton. Man, he's propelling himself into one of those elite safety categories in the NFL. Arguably up there with Minka Fitzpatrick already, and this guy, like, he's talented, and he just made a great play in my opinion. So um, I'm not going to put that on Deshaun. But outside of that, the offense to start off the game, very, very, very rusty, just not clicking. Felt like it was one or two steps behind. Simple, small mistakes that, um, against this great Ravens defense, you can't have.
Mhm.
Just as simple as that. Um, and then, of course, you get to Sean, who gets hurt. Um, it wasn't the best of sequences at that first half, but we got ourselves into field goal range multiple times, 3 times, and got 9 points on the board, and looked pretty solid for the most part. End of the half was kind of sloppy, that's for certain. Um, but that second half, Deshaun stays in the locker room a little bit longer than everybody else. The assumption is getting treatment for his injury, and he comes out and he proceeds to go 14 of 14 for 139 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
And Derek, how many times did we sit here? This podcast has been up for 2 years now.
Yeah. Isn't that
Is
crazy?
as crazy as to say
Yeah, I
that?
was gonna
Yeah,
say,
honestly.
that's
But
insane.
but we would sit here and we would talk about the big moments that Baker couldn't execute.
Mhm.
And this isn't a shot at Baker because he did the best he could.
Yeah.
But, we sat here and we talked about how, you know, you think about that Kansas City game that we
Mhm.
lost. Baker had an opportunity to go win us that football game and he didn't. I think of the very next season, that first game against Kansas City. He had an opportunity to go win us that football game through a game-ending interception. And I mean, there's a ton that I can't even think of right now, but like, it wasn't like that was like the irregularity
Mhm.
thing. Like, it was regular thing. We'd be in a position for Baker to win us a football game, and it just wouldn't happen. This was one of those times where Deshaun Watson single-handedly won us that football game. He really did. I mean, he went to another level when we needed it most.
Yep.
And that right there is why you trade the 3 first-round picks. That right there is why you give him $230 million fully guaranteed. And you can say what you want to say about your agendas or whatever, but he was simply the best and perfect when it mattered most, when we needed it. And the fact that he battled through an injury to get it done,
Mhm.
The amount of times that, like, man, that second half, I felt like I was watching the highlights of Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
that we were
Yeah.
hyping ourselves up over.
Mhm.
Slipping out of sacks, making guys miss, like running the football in clutch moments where we needed him to pick up yards, like making throws, extending plays. Like, I think about that Elijah Moore touchdown, what he did in that play where he single-handedly got himself to a position where, essentially Elijah Moore had a wide open touchdown grab. That run that he had to get us into field goal range.
Mhm.
There was so much that he did in that second half to propel us to victory. And something I forgot to mention on the offensive side was that run where all of our every single player on the offense was pushing the pile for that
Oh,
first down
yes.
in that drive.
Yes.
That was such a great play.
Mhm.
Um, and just showed you that, like, this team wasn't going to die and we were going to work harder and we wanted it more.
Mhm.
Um, but going back to Deshaun, I mean, that right there is, if he can build off of that, man, if he can build off of it, and let this be the beginning, the true beginning of the Deshaun Watson era of Cleveland Browns football. And he can go into next week against Pittsburgh here at home in Cleveland, and he can lead this team to be 7-3.
Mhm.
Man, the momentum of this city
Yep.
is gonna just
Mhm.
pump into this team. And when we talked about the big win against San Francisco, I believe it was against San Francisco. I believe I was highlighting that we needed to stack wins now.
Mhm.
And last week against Arizona was your get right game after Seattle, and now you win this one.
Mhm.
Go win against Pittsburgh. Stack those wins. Get a huge AFC North win under your belt.
Yep.
Get to 3-2 in the division, right? Because remember, we're now just 2-2 in the division. If
Mhm.
we beat Pittsburgh, we're 3-2. Pittsburgh is 2-1. That's
It's huge.
that's where we're
Yep.
at. And yeah, not to mention Thursday night football. Ravens play Cincy,
Mhm.
and Cincy at 5-4 is 1-4 against AFC teams. They, in order to get even into the wild card conversation, need that game. They need it. So I don't like to like place my bets early on,
Mhm.
but I got a feeling like Cincy knows how important that game is going to be, and they're not going to lose. That's at least my thinking. So you have an opportunity next Sunday to play for the division, to play for the lead in the division. And this is a Pittsburgh team that embarrassed you.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, you know what? I'll stop myself now before I get too deep into it because we're going to preview that game.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, no, Deshaun Watson was spectacular in this one, and it was amazing
Mhm.
to just feel like we saw that guy in the Houston Texans jersey, and he
Yep.
just
Yep.
slapped on the Browns crest. Like
Yep.
that was the biggest thing in this game. So, Derek, your thoughts on Deshaun Watson in this one?
Oh boy. Well, this was the tale of two halves for sure. Deshaun Watson first half versus Deshaun Watson second half. I mean, for me, Tristan, it was almost like the Deshaun Watson you saw in the first half was everything that people talk about on Twitter, right? Everything that people debate about, argue about, fight over. Um, because he sucked. I mean, he flat out sucked first half. And finally, things started to pick up, and man, not only did you get the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson, you got the Clemson Tigers, Deshaun Watson. I mean, he was doing stuff today that I haven't seen him do in a long, long time. Some stuff going back to even college. And I think this needed to happen, right? For us, for the fan base, because here's the thing. Is it okay? My biggest thing, Tristan, I said, Deshaun Watson needs to put together two back-to-back consistent good performances. He's done one and a half, which, that's fine. I'll take it. But um his performance in the second half today was straight up just baller Deshaun Watson. This is the guy, like you said, that you made the decision to go get. This is the guy that you looked at and you said, that's Michael Jordan and cleats. And that is what we needed today. And that's what we got. And for me, it was just the overall change was insane because he went from being behind and off target to being spot on. You could tell his confidence came back for sure. And his mobility within the pocket and moving around and creating plays with his legs, as well as extending plays with his legs, that shows why he's a difference maker for sure. And for me personally, you mentioned it, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but at the point where you're at and building wins, and this game, if you wanted a shot to win the division, you had to win this game. I mean, just flat out had to win this game. And you know, when you look at what that game means for the longevity of this team throughout the rest of this year, if you don't win that game, you're in a really tough spot because you're basically wild card certain if you lose that game. Now you're in a much better spot. And Deshaun Watson, coming off of that second half, is now in a spot where I believe he's confident enough in himself because, again, a lot of it is a mental thing. And I think people don't really understand that, especially given the injury as well. A lot of it is I have to see myself do it again to remember that I can. And I think you got that today, 100%. So now taking the performance that he had, especially in the second half, translating that into the game next week, if he can come out and play like he did, and again, it's okay to ask for consistency. I think people, will fight and argue over that, but that's what you should expect. You're a starting quarterback in the NFL. CJ Stroud, as a rookie, came out last week, threw 5 touchdowns, 470 yards, came out this week against the Bengals and said, "Hey, Joe Burrow, hold my nuts," and won. Like it's it's okay to expect consistency from your starting quarterback. And I think for the Browns, the fact that we've seen good enough performance against the Cardinals to show you that he's still talented. Same thing you could argue with the Titans game, but even I would say even better. He played better in the Titans game than he did the Cardinals game. But the fact that he came out in this game, second half, game on the line, there's a cat, and the fact that he came out and absolutely just was the offense. He was the driver behind the wheel, and he pulled off some fast and furious shit. I mean, that's just what it is. And if you can have that with this offense, with the talent that we have on this offense, and Kevin Stefanski doing his part as well. I mean, because that's obviously a big part, but Kevin Stefanski doing his job, Deshaun Watson doing his job, plus a little bit more, you now can have an offense along with one of, if not the best defense in the NFL. And if that is the recipe that you get from Deshaun Watson, from the offense, paired with Jim Schwartz and what he's done on that defense, this team can go to the Super Bowl and can make a deep playoff run. The point where we're at now is you have about a half a year left. Stack wins, A, build confidence, B, and know who you are. Know what your weapons are. Know who you can go to if somebody goes down. And I think one of the things you mentioned that I forgot to mention, Cedric Tillman today, I don't know why, Tristan. I don't know. I really don't have an answer. It's not like he did anything other than absolutely murder Kyle Van Noy. Um, but I just have a feeling he's breaking out soon. I think he's going to have a game here soon where he's going to establish himself. And I think it's heartbreaking that DPJ was traded because I love DPJ, always will. But at the same time, it's like he was going to be replaced. He was replaced. And now his replacement is getting reps. And when is he going to step into the role that DPJ was supposed to be this year? And I think that's coming. I think that's the next part. You saw Amari Cooper have another great game. Njoku doing the same thing. Jerome Ford starting to establish himself. And then all of a sudden today, bam, Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore starting to do something. Okay, take that recipe. Who's your number 3 receiver? Because if Cedric Tillman can step up, dude, the Browns can beat any team in the NFL. And that's not a stretch. We
No,
showed it today.
no,
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
okay. Completely off topic, right? This is the most our podcast thing ever. Not even Browns related at all. Don't ask me why I'm saying this. I don't have an explanation. But for whatever reason, when you were talking, I looked up at the Raiders game and I thought about that video of Chandler Jones saying that his dog is Larry Fitzgerald. Did you see that video? You've never
No,
seen that video? Oh my gosh.
no.
Dude, I don't know why my brain works the way it does, but I just saw the Raiders and then I thought of Chandler Jones and then I thought of that video and I was really trying not to lose it because my brain is stupid. And I was just sitting here thinking about Chandler Jones going insane. But anyway,
Yeah, no. And
yeah,
sorry about the interruption by my cat. He just seems to be so happy the Browns won that he wants more attention from me.
yeah. Well,
So sorry about that, but
no, you're good.
uh, but yeah, no. I mean, yeah, just really resilient. A lot of great things. Um, I'm excited to see where this team goes from here. And I can't wait to. I mean, hell, you heard me. I could hardly wait to get into this preview for the Steelers, but we got one other thing to cover, and that's the defense today. Um, this team defensively, um, you know, my uncle who I talked to after the game said that it's really weird because today they were like feast or famine. They were either incredibly good and unable to get past them, or the Ravens were getting chunk plays at ease. It was really weird where there's a lot of inconsistency. But again, you're playing against an elite quarterback, against a good offense, a really good offense. So that stuff's just kind of happened, I guess. I mean, um, you know, this defense, when it mattered most, they got the ball back to our offense. So what we said about Deshaun, we can say again about this defense
Mhm.
because when even though they weren't perfect this game, when it mattered most, they got it done. They did what they needed to do, and um, I thought Miles Garrett today was great. I thought had a couple of plays that really, really affected the game.
Mhm.
Was it anything like what he did against Indy? No, but again, this is an incredibly good team. They're going to game plan against him and make him have as least of an impact as possible. And yet he's still got a sack and a half. He's still got a bunch of pressure, so um excuse me. So it was still good to see. The rest of the D line today, you know, it was, again with that feast or famine thing. Like there were series where it was like they were really, really good getting into the backfield all the time. And then there were series where it was like they were getting like
Mhm.
mopped by the Raiders O line. Which, kind of sucked, but it is what it is. We still got the dub. Um, Obo Nkoronkwo with an amazing play
Mhm.
uh, to get it up into the air. Greg Newsome with his first interception
Yeah.
as a
How
Cleveland
about
Brown
that? Yep. What a
takes
game
it
to
to the
have it
house.
too. What a game. And it's a pick
Oh,
6,
we
yeah.
needed it. Yeah, pick six.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. It was incredible. I mean, by that point, like, because I'll be honest, when we went down 31-17,
Mhm.
I said I didn't say this one's over. I was like this one's probably over. We'd have to get a quick score here. So I mean, let's see if we do. And then we got the quick score,
Mhm.
and then like 2 plays later from the Ravens offense, we get a pick six, and it's a 1 point game. Um, yeah, I mean, just incredible performance by that defense when you put into effect that they came in and they played and did what they needed to do at the right moments.
Mhm.
Um, they had some wins and losses, but you're playing against an elite quarterback on a really good team, so
Yeah.
it's gonna happen. So that's it's hard for me to. Oh, can't believe I was about to dismiss this because it was special teams with defensive player Jordan Elliott. I talked about him last week. Huge field goal block.
Mhm.
Um, it's starting to get to a point with him now where it's like he's having an effect every game,
Mhm.
and it's so crazy to me that this guy last year, you know,
We were gonna cut
like
him.
was getting we were gonna cut him. Like we were like he's useless. Like what's the point? Why does he still have a roster spot?
Yep.
Like we were like flaming this guy because he was just not good enough, flat out. And here he is, and he in back-to-back weeks has really good games, and in several of our past several games, he has contributed in a very positive way. And in this one, he kept 3 points off the board, and we won by 2. So
Yep.
it's all the small things when it comes down to winning tough games like these. And he's a guy now where it's like he's going to contribute a small thing,
Mhm.
and it's so good to see. It's so good to see. Um, yeah, this the secondary, I thought, uh, again, had some good plays in them,
Mhm.
but kind of shaky. Which, listen, you Denzel Ward went out really early. Juan Thornhill went out shortly thereafter, so it was an uphill battle for them. So yeah, they got it done. It was a little bit dirty, but hey, is what it is. You take the dub.
Mhm.
You take the dub.
Yeah.
So yeah, Derek, thoughts on this defense? I mean, I didn't really highlight on Dustin Hopkins, but
Mhm.
I don't know if I really need to at this point. I mean,
It's every
what's
week.
said about him has
Yep.
been said.
Mhm.
Yeah, every week. So, but Derek, your overall thoughts on this defense?
Uh, well, Tristan, we tend to think alike a lot as far as this team, and I'm very glad you forgot to mention one player because there was one player today that I am so happy that he's on this team. And you're gonna hear this and be like, huh? But man, Mike Ford Jr. is a fucking stone cold killer. That dude lit Lamar Jackson's ass up on the sideline, turned around and said, fuck you, hold my nuts, picked his ball off. Man, I've never been so proud of a Browns player in my life like I was of Mike Ford today. I mean, I can't even explain to you like the range of emotions of watching him lay Lamar Jackson's ass out. Like, I mean, he fucking hammered him and then turned around the very next play and said, "Oh yeah, I'm not gone. Pick." And I don't know why. I can't explain it, but for whatever reason, like, dude, if I could like just dap up Mike Ford and just like be like, dude, good shit. Like that was
Yeah,
crazy. That was
for for
that was incredible.
for 2 plays, he was like a Madden
Yeah.
99 overall
Yeah.
superstar X factor. Yeah,
No, dude.
yeah.
Yeah, that was video
It was great.
game-esque. Couldn't have said it any better. He had 2 back-to-back plays that just left me like, "All right, yeah, we're here to play. We're we're here to smack you in the mouth." I love it. I love it. Um, but yeah, defense as a whole, I mean, Lamar Jackson is superhuman. I said it the last time I was there for that game. It was the first time for me ever seeing Lamar Jackson in person, and I was like, man, he's unstoppable. Like, really, once he gets going, there's not much you can do. He's so fast. Like, yeah, oh, he's fast, whatever. No, he's fast, and you saw that today, and it's like the Browns, even though it was so hard to get to him, and he made plays, and obviously, you go up early. The Ravens were able to run the ball on you a little bit, and Mark Andrews is going to do what he's going to do. Odell Beckham Jr. getting a touchdown today made me want to throw up because I was like, of course, we're going to lose, and OBJ has to score a touchdown.
When he did that peace sign
Hmm.
on us, oh my god, I swear that was the moment that everybody like was
Hmm.
like, "No, we can't.
Yeah.
We can't lose.
Yeah.
We can't lose."
No.
This man does the peace sign on us? Hell no.
Hmm.
Hell no.
No, dude, yeah, that made me sick. I was sitting there and I just stopped. I was looking at the TV and I'm like, of course. I mean, that's just of course that's how it would happen. But no. Defense, even throughout as hard as it was, today, they stepped up when needed. They answered when needed. Like you said, Greg Newsome, his first interception was in the biggest game of the year, arguably. It was a pick six, and it was essentially to basically put you back in this legitimately. And it had to happen. It did happen. And without Denzel Ward, this was a situation where you stepped up, you answered, and you got the job done. And that's the biggest thing for me for both every side of the ball. I mentioned at the start of this, offensively, defensively, special teams, even when you face adversity and, Deshaun starts off, he's terrible, answers, comes back, and is incredible. Defense struggled a little bit, right? Lamar did what he did. They were able to run the ball. You answered, and you got the job done. Special teams, same thing. Dustin Hopkins missed the field goal. Jordan Elliott blocks it. Blocks a field goal, not Dustin Hopkins, but you get what I'm saying. And then you kick the game winner. And it's like, this team wouldn't be denied.
Yeah. I mean, how we muffed the punt.
Yeah, no,
Like on
literally.
our own
Yeah.
11-yard line.
Yeah.
On our own 11-yard line, we fought through it.
I'm glad you said that because for a half second, I thought James Prochet was a double agent. I really did. I really did.
Oh yeah. No, I'm with you.
Because I saw that and I said,
Listen, we already know one Harbaugh cheats.
exactly.
All right.
Yep. Yep.
Who's to
Exactly.
say that man didn't slide him 20K under the table? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Here, fumble, kick return or punt return, whatever. But yeah, no, man.
Roughly
I
punt.
thought the defense wasn't great all day. It's kind of weird. Jim Schwartz defense at times, it's undeniable. You can't do a damn thing against it. And then at times it's like it's still good. It's just they, for whatever reason on the road, struggle a little bit. Saw it against Seattle, saw it against uh the who else am I thinking? The Colts. Um Today at times it's just random points where this defense struggles a bit, but hey, it's going to happen. We got the job done. The difference from the first Ravens game to this Ravens game is monumental. So, in terms of that measuring stick, this is about as good as a result as you can come away with, honestly, from every aspect. Not really whole much more you can ask for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something else I kind of want to point out: defense on opening drives this year has kind of been not great. Like even against the Cardinals, like the Cardinals got the majority of their
Mhm,
yards in the first series against us. So something that we definitely have to keep an eye on. Like, hey, is this team always gonna give up yards like that?
mhm,
Um, so, I also did want to say, you know how I told you that like Aaron Rodgers had like a cryptic tweet that he was hinting at coming back by the Browns game
mhm.
in December? Mike Garofolo just tweeted Aaron Rodgers' goal is to return in mid-December.
Yeah.
So then that's confirmed from a report on NBC. So
Well,
honestly, if I'm just saying this right now, unless it's like a must-win game for the Jets, I would not be
okay.
putting Aaron Rodgers
Mhm,
out there against Miles Garrett. Like, are you shitting me? Like, you want to test this guy's Achilles against Miles Garrett?
mhm,
Huh? Like, that's it's like the yeah, it would be incredibly dumb,
mhm.
incredibly dumb. But I rest my case.
Yeah.
So.